Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling, well, a fascinating mix. We've got sources about a new novel release, and it's turning heads, not just for the story itself, which sounds pretty wild, but also how it's being brought out globally.
Yeah, it's this blend of high-concept fantasy and some really cutting-edge tech in the publishing.
Exactly. So our mission today, for you listening, is to kind of pull out the main story hooks, and also to get a handle on this dual thing going on. Pure imagination meeting, well, AI-driven publishing, and we absolutely have to start with the title. It's just perfect internet, isn't it? I was hit by a truck, and now I'm a legendary sword.
Oh, yeah. That title just does so much heavy lifting right away. For anyone maybe not deep into the genre, Isekai basically means other world.
Wow.
It's usually stories where, someone gets yanked from our world into a fantasy one, and the hit by a truck part. That's like the most famous, almost cliche way it happens. Often played for laughs even.
Right, a classic truck gun trope.
Exactly. But this novel, it seems like it uses that, acknowledges it, and then pivots pretty hard into something more like high fantasy. It's coming from Harmin Books Publishing, and it feels significant, like a showcase of how quickly Japanese fiction, especially the inventive stuff, can now hit the global stage. They're using advanced digital formats, audio experiences, the works.
And the release date, we have that, right?
We do. It's November 18th, 2025. That's for both the ebook and the audiobook version. So simultaneous global release.
Okay, so let's unpack the story itself first. Beyond that killer title and the Isekai setup, what makes this one stand out? The sources say it's about 51,000 words, Japanese fantasy adventure, author's name Kusanagi Riku, and the goal seems ambitious: redefine the genre with emotional depth, mythic resonance.
Yeah, I think the uniqueness really comes down to the main characters, the duo at the center, and maybe the kind of tragedy involved. It's not just about saving the world, apparently. It's deeper, more existential. We've got Airi Kanzaki, she's the young heroine, described as courageous.
Yeah.
And then there's Riku.
The sword.
The sword, yeah. But importantly, he is the sentient sword.
And the sources are clear. Riku is literally the soul of the guy hit by the truck. So the truck wasn't like a portal. It was transformative.
Precisely. More like an alchemical event, yeah. His soul, his consciousness, gets rebound into this legendary weapon, imprisoned in steel, as the source puts it. And that immediately ramps up the stakes, Riku isn't just some guy getting a cool new power-up in another world. He's fundamentally changed. He's like this disembodied mind wrestling with his lost humanity while also being this object of immense power.
Wow.
The sources even describe his struggle as exploring the line between humanity and divinity. Is he just a tool, a spirit, something else?
That's a heavy burden for, well, a sword. How does Airi handle that? I mean, she's relying on a weapon that's simultaneously having an existential crisis.
Right. And that seems to be where the story finds its depth. They're bound together, partly by need, partly by destiny. It sounds like their big goal is fighting this dark warlord, Kurogane. He's got some artifact called the Crystal of Night.
The Crystal of Night. Sounds ominous.
Yeah, described as an agent of pure despair. It threatens to basically snuff out all hope. So their quest becomes super personal. They're fighting for humanity, while one of them has kind of already lost his in a very literal way.
Okay, that definitely sets up an epic feel, both visually and emotionally. The world-building details sound pretty vivid, too. Sources mention places like the Glimmering Forest, sounds mystical, maybe where they get help, and then the Dark Citadel, Kurogane's base. Very contrasting vibes.
Totally. And it's not just scenery. We get hints about the journey itself. Airi faces something called the Trials of Destiny. And these aren't just random monster fights. They're described as battles that actually manifest her inner struggles, her fears, sorrows, strengths.
Ah, okay. So it moves past standard action. It's more allegorical.
Seems like it, yeah. The journey itself becomes about processing trauma, maybe. Airi's fighting her own demons, quite literally. And Riku, the sword, is sort of this trapped observer to the human struggle he can't directly participate in anymore, but has to, enable and protect.
That arc does sound powerful. The chapter titles mentioned in the sources, like Awakening in Steel early on, and then later, the final confrontation. It's just a really clear progression. From two separate beings kind of forced together to real partners fighting for the world.
It does feel deliberate, structured. And if you connect that back to the isekai genre overall, this focus on shared grief, on spiritual awakening, that feels like the attempt to elevate things. It's aiming to be more than just a power fantasy. It's using the fantasy setup to talk about identity resilience.
Okay, that makes sense. And that brings us neatly to the author, Kusanagi Riku. Let's get some context on him. It's his English debut, right? So most of us probably haven't encountered his work before.
Right. He's based in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And while he's new to us in English via Harmin Books, those sources say he's built a solid reputation in Japan, known for blending, and these are the terms used, poetic myth with emotional realism, all within that Isekai framework. So taking these big fantastical ideas, but grounding them in a, believable character psychology.
Now, this is where, for me anyway, it gets really interesting for genre fans. The comparisons being made, they're significant.
They are, yeah. He's being compared to Ryogo Narita and Natsume Akatsuki. And yeah, those are not names you just throw around lightly. It suggests the novel's trying for a unique kind of mix.
Okay, hold on. I got to push back on that a little, or at least understand it better. Narita, we're talking Durara, Bakano, right? Super complex, interweaving plots, often urban fantasy, morally gray casts, intricate world building. Then Akatsuki, that's Konosuba, famous for being hilarious, sharp satire, constantly poking fun at isekai tropes. How does one author bridge that gap? Dark complexity and lighthearted satire.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it speaks to the book's ambition, I think.
Yeah.
The sources suggest the balance isn't really about copying Narita's narrative complexity like huge casts or tangled plots. It's more about the thematic weight. So Riku seems to share Narita's focus on big themes like moral destiny, sacrifice. The stakes feel genuinely high. The emotional cost is real. That's the Narita echo. But he delivers that heavy story with the pace and maybe the directness we see in more modern isekai. And that's where the Akatsuki comparison seems to fit in. It's not about comedy, but maybe that sharp contemporary feel. The story moves, focuses on the character's immediate trauma, grief, losing identity, things that feel very relatable, very now. It's not getting bogged down in, say, setting up intricate political factions for ages. It's epic, but intimate and maybe faster paced. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, that reframes it. So it's not about mimicking their specific styles, but maybe achieving a similar kind of impact. Narita's depth, maybe, but packaged with Akatsuki's kind of accessible energy.
Exactly. That seems to be the idea. It suggests the genre is maybe maturing. Authors aren't just hitting the same beats over and over. They're using the isekai framework for, well, like you said, for allegory, deeper themes.
Right, using the fantasy element, the sentient sword, to explore really human stuff. Grief. Finding yourself again after trauma.
Yeah, fundamental human experiences made immediate through the fantasy lens.
Absolutely. Okay, let's make that pivot now. Because we can't just talk about the story, cool as it sounds. We have to look at how it's getting to us. This story about magic and spirit bonds is being published using AI.
And that's the other major pillar in the source material, yeah. Harmin Books Publishing, it's a division of Harmin Books, and they're explicitly called an AI-driven literary platform. Their whole thing is digital publishing and, importantly, audio production. And they handle both works that are AI-enhanced and traditionally authored works, like this one seems to be.
Their core mission statement, according to the sources, is about pioneering the intersection of AI, storytelling, and global publishing. And it mentions they're part of something called the Global Media Bank ecosystem. What does that mean, practically?
Well, being part of an ecosystem like Global Media Bank usually implies more than just distribution. It suggests a network, access to data, maybe funding, cross-platform stuff. For Harmin Books, it likely means they can tap into resources for super-fast global market access, translation, high-tech production, which is probably how they can launch a Japanese novel worldwide instantly in multiple formats. Skips the years-long wait you often see with traditional publishing and translation pipelines.
Right, using tech to shrink the world, basically. Bridge those cultural gaps faster.
Exactly, and the most concrete example of that tech-driven approach here is the audiobook. That's where the AI really takes center stage.
Right, the narration.
Yeah, the audiobook is narrated by Nova. And Nova isn't a person, it's Harmin Books' own in-house AI voice engine. And the claim isn't just speed or cost saving. The publisher explicitly states Nova's purpose is to capture every emotional nuance, which is a huge claim, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. Capturing Airi's courage, her fear, but also Riku's inner turmoil as this, soul trapped in metal. That's incredibly subtle stuff.
That does raise a big question, doesn't it? If the story hinges on that emotional depth, that delicate connection between Airi and Riku, can an AI, however sophisticated, truly deliver that nuance? Or is there maybe a trade-off happening here? Are they sacrificing, perhaps, the subtle artistry of a human performer for that instant global reach?
That's the core thing for you, the listener, to chew on, I think.
Yeah.
The sources frame Nova's value proposition as achieving both consistency and emotional complexity, maybe faster and more scalably than humans can. Think about adapting it for different languages. Maybe the AI can adjust the emotional tone for localization more efficiently. The tech probably uses vast amounts of data to mimic human vocal patterns tied to specific emotions in the text. It's like hyper-efficient, emotionally targeted performance synthesis. So we can't judge the actual result yet, obviously, but the goal seems clear. Use non-human tech to perfectly convey the human experience woven into the story, applying knowledge, the tech knowledge, to maximize the reach of the human story.
It really is an incredible paradox when you lay it out like that. You've got the story, I was hit by a truck, and now I'm a legendary sword. It's built on magic, spiritual trials, deep human bonds. Written by an author getting compared to these titans of fantasy storytelling, and it's delivered by one of the most advanced publishing setups using a custom AI voice designed specifically to replicate complex human emotion. It's, a total synthesis.
Right. And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture. This whole release feels like a snapshot of our current media moment. The story itself digs into the most fundamental human themes. Courage, grief, identity, spiritual growth, all that deep stuff. Yet the delivery system, entirely non-human, an AI platform, an AI narrator.
Which leaves us, and you, with a pretty profound question to mull over, I think. If the book itself is exploring Riku's consciousness, this human soul trapped in a non-human sword form, navigating that blurry line between humanity and divinity, what does it signify for literature's future when the process of bringing that story to the world, from the global platform right down to the voice speaking the words, is also blurring the line between human creation and artificial intelligence? Definitely something to think about. Until our next deep dive,